A few months ago, I was working late in my cramped apartment near Taco Bell. I often worked into the night, and the restaurant was my go-to for a quick meal. I thought it was just another Tuesday when I walked in. The lights flickered above me, and the smell of old oil filled the air. I ordered my usual 3 tacos and a soda. The place was almost empty, just a few diners scattered around. I took a seat in my booth by the window. As I waited, I overheard whispers from the corner. It sounded like they were talking about "What's coming?" and "The last time." I glanced over. Their faces were hidden in the shadows, and a chill ran down my spine. Maybe I was just tired, I told myself, trying to shake off the weird feeling. The next night I went back. They were there again, speaking in hushed tones. It felt like they were watching me. I caught the eye of a woman in the corner. Her gaze was intense. My heart raced. I wondered what she wanted. This went on for several nights. I kept seeing those whispers and shadows. Sometimes I'd feel a presence behind me, but when I turned, no one was there. I was scared. I swore I saw that woman every time. I tried to tell myself I was just overworked and losing it. Then one night, as I sat biting into a taco, the woman slid into the seat across from me. I froze. She stared into my eyes, searching for something. "Do you want to know the truth?" she whispered. I felt heavy, like the air itself was solid. I didn't say anything. I felt cold, as if someone had sucked all the warmth from my skin. My heart raced. What did she want? I wanted to leave, but it was like my feet were glued to the ground. Then she laughed softly. It was cruel and knowing. I looked around the restaurant. The other diners had vanished, and the place felt completely empty. The lights flickered again, and I thought I might just disappear, too. Then I heard her whisper, "It's coming for you." Panic surged through me. I stood up, bolting for the exit. I ran into the night, my heart pounding. What did she mean? I didn't know. The unease stuck with me. I kept looking over my shoulder. I felt like I was being followed. That was the last night I returned. The shadows still haunt me, lurking just out of sight. Even now, every time I pass Taco Bell, I can almost hear those whispers. The shadows seem to dance around me. Sometimes, I think about that woman. What truth did she want to share? I can't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. What was coming? I'm still waiting for answers that may never come. That week, I did my best to avoid Taco Bell. The thought of those whispers made my stomach turn. I tried working late at home, but the noise from the street kept breaking my concentration. My mind kept drifting back to the woman's eyes, her chilling questions. What truth? What was coming for me? A few nights later, I needed a break. I went for a walk to clear my head. The streets were quiet. I passed the local diner, closed for remodeling. It felt eerie, like another piece of my familiar world had disappeared. I decided to grab a coffee. It might help me think. As I entered the small cafe, the bell above the door jingled softly. The air smelled of brewing coffee and fresh pastries. I took a seat by the window, feeling somewhat safe here. I opened my laptop, hoping to drown out my fear in work. But my gaze couldn't help but wander out the window. That's when I saw her. The woman from Taco Bell stood across the street, staring directly at me. My blood ran cold. She looked unchanged, that same intensity in her eyes. My heart raced as I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light. I grabbed my coffee and stood up, ready to leave. I needed to get away, but before I could step outside, she approached the door. The bell jingled again as she entered. "Why are you running?" she asked, her voice calm yet demanding. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't form any words. My eyes darted around the cafe, seeking help that wasn't coming. "I'm not running," I finally said, trying to sound brave. She tilted her head, amusement dancing in her eyes. "Liar." The air thickened. I was trapped. "What do you want from me?" I managed to say. Her smile faded. "I told you, it's coming for you. But you need to prepare." Prepare for what? I snapped, frustration bubbling under my fear. Everything, was all she said. Then her expression changed, becoming serious. Listen, if you don't want to be caught unawares, you must follow the signs. Signs? What signs? Before she could answer, the cafe door swung open. A gust of wind swept in, bringing a chill. I glanced over, and when I turned back, the woman was gone. I bolted out of the cafe, scanning the street. But there was no sign of her. Just the quiet hum of the city. Had I imagined her? I felt dizzy. I walked home, trying to make sense of it all. Maybe I was losing it. But her last words echoing in my mind took root. The signs. What was I supposed to look for? That night sleep came hard. I tossed and turned, visioning shadows creeping into my dreams. The next morning, a thought struck me. I remembered the corner where I first heard the whispers. What if I went back? What if the truth really was waiting there? So, I made a plan. I was going back. I needed answers. But deep down, I couldn't shake the fear that I might not like what I found. I spent the morning with my heart racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to step into something dark. My mind was spinning with questions. What signs was the woman talking about? Why did I feel like I was being watched? I had to know. By the time I made it to that corner, I felt sick with apprehension. The sun was setting, casting a dull orange glow over everything. It felt too quiet, like the world was holding its breath. I stood there, wondering if I was just being foolish. But curiosity pulled at me harder than my fear. I lingered near the spot where I first encountered the whispers, scanning the area. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Just a regular street corner, the smell of old oil lingering. My senses were on high alert. I half expected to see the woman again, but she was a ghost, a specter looming just out of reach. Then, I noticed something glinting on the ground. I approached cautiously, my heart hammering in my chest. It was a small, silver pendant, shaped like an eye. I picked it up, brushing the dirt off. It felt cold in my palm, and I suddenly felt a surge of unease. What was this doing here? Did it belong to the woman? My thoughts raced back to her ominous warning. Perhaps this pendant was one of the signs. I needed to figure out what it meant. I slipped it into my pocket, determined to find answers. Just as I turned to leave, I heard it. A hushed whisper, soft and urgent. I froze and listened closely. The voice was indistinct but persistent, a sound echoing through my mind. Follow, follow, panic shot through me. My instincts screamed that I had to get out of there. But my legs wouldn't move. What if the voice held the key to understanding? What if I turned my back on the very truth I sought? Gathering courage, I followed the sound. It led me down an alley beside an old, crumbling building. Shivers raced up my spine. The air felt heavier here, thick with something I couldn't identify. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. At the end of the alley, I found a door slightly ajar, creaking gently with the wind. The whispers seemed to be coming from within. I hesitated, my heart pounding. Was this a mistake? Then, a shadow moved at the edge of my vision. I looked around, eyes darting, but there was no one there. The whispering intensified, mingling with the beating of my heart. I took a deep breath and pushed open the door. The inside was dark, lit only by a single flickering light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The whispers stopped, plunging me into a suffocating silence. I was alone, or at least I thought I was. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket, making me jump. I pulled it out to check who was calling, and my heart dropped. It was an unknown number. When I answered, a voice echoed in my ear, a voice I recognized all too well. You didn't listen. It's coming. I froze. My blood ran cold as realization hit. Someone was controlling the narrative, and I was just a pawn. I could barely process what I just heard. My stomach churned. How did they know where I was? The weight of uncertainty pressed down on me, and a flash of anger sparked within. I wanted to shout into the phone, demand answers, but the voice cut off abruptly, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. I stood there, the door gaping open, heart racing again, but not from fear this time. This was a familiar kind of fear, the one that comes with feeling completely trapped. The pendant felt heavy in my pocket, as if it were a weight urging me backward. I took a deep breath and decided I couldn't just stand around. I stepped fully into the dim room, scanning the space for clues, any trace of the whispers that had drawn me here. The floor creaked under my feet, dust swirling in the stale air. A chill crept down my spine as I moved deeper inside. The walls were bare, but there were old newspaper clippings tacked haphazardly on a corkboard in the corner. I walked over, compelled by a need to make sense of this situation. The clippings were dozens of years old, yellowed with age, stories about disappearances and strange sightings that sent my heart into a full sprint. I reached for one that caught my eye. The headline shouted about the woman in the shadows and detailed how she supposedly entranced people before they disappeared. I felt cold sweat bead on my forehead. Was she the woman I had seen? The articles hinted at a connection between those that vanished and a strange area of the city, the same shadows that loomed over me just moments ago. Before I could dwell on that, I heard the sound again, soft but distinct. Footsteps. A shuffling somewhere in the back of the room. I froze again, half tempted to slip out the door, but another instinct held me there. What if this was the key to everything? With cautious steps, I moved toward the source of the sound. The flickering light bulb cast dancing shadows across the walls, enhancing the sense of dread creeping up my throat. The footsteps stopped. My breath caught in my chest. "Who's there?" I called, my voice sounding small in the overwhelming dark. The only response was a low chuckle, one that sent ice coursing through my veins. It was too familiar, it echoed the voice from the call. I couldn't think of how to escape, but I needed to confront whatever this was. As I turned the corner, my heart dropped. A figure stood at the far end of the room, obscured by the shadows. I took a step back, ready to run, but the figure stepped forward, revealing a face I recognized. It was her, the woman from my initial encounter. Her eyes glinted with something dark and knowing, a smile dancing on her lips. "You've finally followed," she said, her voice echoing like the whisper I had heard earlier. Before I could react, she raised her hand, revealing another pendant just like the one I had picked up. "You'll need this," she said softly. That S when I noticed the words engraved on it, "The Watcher Waits." Fear slammed into me. Was I about to become part of the next story? I stared at her, the pendant dangling from her fingers, caught between a mix of fascination and horror. The woman's smile widened, as if she could sense the turmoil inside me. I needed to say something, to reclaim some sense of control, but the words died in my throat. "Why are you doing this?" I finally managed, my voice trembling slightly. "What do you want from me?" She tilted her head, and for a moment, her expression flickered with something almost maternal. "I want to help you understand," she said, her tone eerily calm. "You're already part of this, whether you believe it or not." Her words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Calming breaths didn't come easily. My thoughts raced ahead, horror and confusion colliding. "What do you mean?" "I don't want to be part of anything." "Oh, but you already are," she insisted, stepping closer. "The pendant you carry, it's more than just a trinket. It's a key, and it has chosen you." I hesitated, remembering how I had found it earlier. A sick feeling washed over me. "A key to what?" "The Watcher," she replied, the hint of a chant weaving into her words. "The one who sees and knows, the one who observes from the shadows. The key unlocks the way to their realm. All you have to do is let go." "Let go?" Panic gripped me again. "You mean I should just surrender to whatever this is?" Her smile turned sharp, revealing a hint of teeth I hadn't noticed before. "Not surrender, dear. Embrace. You've felt their call. You've followed the signs. Allow yourself to see." Before I could respond, the world tilted. A sudden chill filled the air, and shadows writhed around us, muting the dim light. I felt disoriented, as if reality itself was stretching thin. I blinked, and the room morphed around me. The old newspaper clippings transformed, their menus rearranging into faces of the vanished faces I recognized. Friends. Family. People I had lost touch with. Faces I thought were gone forever. No! I gasped, stepping back. What is this? What have you done? Only illuminated your path, she said, unperturbed. Choose, dear one. Hold the pendant, unlock the door, and meet those who wait. Meet who? I shouted, voice cracking. What will happen to me? The laughter echoed again. That's the beauty of it. You may never know until it's too late. I gripped the pendant in my pocket, the words, "The Watcher waits," ringing in my ears. The darkness closed in tighter, and I felt the boundaries of the room begin to dissolve. My heart raced, pounding in my chest. I didn't want this. I didn't want to disappear like those others. But then, everything went dark. In the abyss, I could feel the world shift. My instincts screamed for me to run, but there was nowhere to escape. Just the weight of silence pressing down on me, as if the shadows themselves were about to consume me whole. I blinked, disoriented and gasping for breath. Light sliced through the darkness, illuminating a space that felt strangely unnatural. I was inside a room, but not any room I recognized. The walls were adorned with faded portraits, their eyes seeming to follow me wherever I moved. I could almost hear the echoes of whispers brushing against my ears, voices coded in a soothing hum, though I couldn't make out the words. Instinctively, I reached for the pendant, but it was no longer in my pocket. A surge of panic coursed through me as I patted down my clothes. It was gone. I felt exposed, vulnerable. But the whispers grew louder, coiling around me like a serpent, urging me to calm down. Mia, a voice called out, soft yet chilling. I spun around, scanning the room for its source. Mia, you've arrived. Who's there? I demanded. Show yourself. My voice trembled, revealing the fear I tried so hard to suppress. The air shifted again, coalescing into a figure before me. It was the woman from before, but now she appeared more ethereal, a shimmering silhouette against the antiquated backdrop. You're meant to be here, she said, as if she understood everything that had led me to this moment. Meant to be where? I nearly shouted, my frustration mounting. Why am I here? What do you want? She stepped forward, a predatory grace in her movements, her smile still infuriatingly calm. You must not fight it. Remember the faces you saw? They've waited for you to enter. As she spoke, the portraits flickered. I caught glimpses of my loved ones again, friends and family, their faces twisted with anguish, reaching out to me, silent pleas reflected in their eyes. Why? I whispered, backing away. They're gone. This is a trick. No trick, dear. They are here because you still carry them within you. Each loss has tethered them to this realm. And now they need you to choose. Choose what? The weight of her words bore down on me, mixing dread with an aching sense of longing. To set them free, she said matter-of-factly. Complete the cycle, give up the earthly ties. I felt a hollowness inside. The thought of letting go of everything and everyone I had ever cared about was unbearable. But I can't. I want tea. Then they suffer, she replied, the sweetness in her voice vanishing, replaced by an edge of menace. It's your choice. The key powers this connection. Without it, they will fade into oblivion. Just then, a gust swept through the room, swirling shadows and distorting the visible air. I could see the fear flash in the portraits as they flickered like candles about to go out. No! I cried, desperately searching for an answer, some way to save them without losing myself. As the darkness crept closer, the pendant reappeared in front of me, hovering in the air, glowing faintly. I reached for it, my heart racing. Should I take it? Should I unlock whatever door it opened? I hesitated, then lunged. But instead of grasping it, I felt a hand on my arm, cold and thin. I turned to confront the figure, but it was no longer the woman I recognized. It was one of the faces from the portraits, twisted in silent agony. Help us, it whispered. Then everything went black again. I gasped, my lungs burning with the effort to breathe again. Light returned, but it was harsh and fluorescent, buzzing like angry bees above me. I rolled to my side and pushed myself up, realizing I was on an old wooden floor. It creaked as I moved. Where was I? I blinked, taking in my surroundings. Everything looked different now. No portraits, no ethereal woman. Just a dimly lit storage room cluttered with boxes and discarded furniture. The air was stale, and an unsettling silence enveloped me. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaky. The whispering returned, muted but persistent, echoing through the narrow space. I scrambled to my feet, suddenly aware of the cold sweat drenching my skin. I spotted movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned sharply, and there it was, the pendant, resting on the floor beneath a broken chair. It pulsed with a faint light, beckoning me closer. I felt a strong pull toward it, an almost magnetic force that made my heart race. Just as I reached for it, I heard a low growl from behind one of the boxes. My breath caught in my throat. Panic surged through me. Was something lurking in the shadows? Mia, the voice was distorted, like a broken radio tuning in and out. It echoed off the walls, making it hard to pinpoint its origin. I steadied myself, clenching my fists. "Who's there? Show yourself." My voice was firmer now, though fear knotted in my stomach. The growl escalated to a snarl, and I took an instinctive step back, bumping into the chair. Suddenly, a figure lunged from behind the boxes, a shadowy creature with elongated limbs and hollow eyes. It froze, staring at me, unblinking. A part of me wanted to scream, but all I could do was stare back. "Help us, Mia," it rasped, its voice slurred as if it struggled to form words. The visage of agony twisted its face, reminding me of my loved ones trapped within those portraits. My breath came quicker, panic clawing at my chest. "Why are you here?" I stammered, horrified. "Are you? Remember the pact?" It hissed, its face distorting as if the effort pained it. "You promised." "What pact?" My mind raced, searching for memories that might explain this horror. I couldn't think straight. The pendant lay just out of reach, and the figure took a slow step forward, its gaze boring into my soul. Then everything clicked into place: the faces, the whispering, the choice. They were all trapped here, and I was somehow linked to their suffering. I had to face this head on. "Leave me alone!" I shouted, taking another step backward. The pendant slipped from my grasp, rolling toward the figure, which flinched at the light. And then, the whispers welled up into a crescendo, a cacophony of voices, each filled with desperation and grief. I covered my ears, but the sound pierced through, demanding my attention. "Make the choice, Mia!" In that moment, I knew I couldn't run anymore. With newfound determination, I reached for the pendant, but another shadow emerged, blocking my path. My heart raced. Who else was there? The growling figure wasn't the only threat in this cursed room. I clenched my jaw, prepared to confront the darkness head-on. The figure stepped forward, revealing a face twisted in anguish. Its eyes glowed in the dim light, piercing through the darkness. I had no idea what it wanted, but I was no longer paralyzed by fear. The pendant was near, and I had to reach it. I lunged for the pendant, but the moment my fingers brushed against it, the shadow lunged at me, snarling in rage. I pulled back, narrowly avoiding its grasp. The other creature flinched, clearly in pain, but its eyes held a sense of urgency. "Do it!" it screamed, its voice rattling through the air like shattering glass. "Before it's too late." I didn't know what I was meant to do, but a part of me recognized that the pendant had power I needed. I couldn't let fear hold me back. I took a deep breath and dove for it again, ignoring the looming presence in front of me. This time, I gripped the pendant tightly. An electric shock coursed through my body, and the harsh fluorescent lights flickered. The boxy shadows shifted and twisted, almost like they had life of their own. I stood up, shaking with energy and dread. "Stop!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. The growling creature paused, as if sensing a shift. "Release us," it pleaded. Suddenly, memories flooded back. The faces in the portraits didn't just belong to my family. they were victims. Each entry in that cursed gallery signified a choice I'd made, each one leading me to this moment. The pact was about protecting those I loved, but at what cost? I took a step toward the growling figure. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice trembling against the weight of realization. "Save us," it whispered. "You have the power." Before I could ask how, the air thickened, and the shadows closed in around me. I could feel their coldness creeping beneath my skin. The pendant glowed fiercely, illuminating my path. In that light, shadows formed symbols across the floor, symbols of binding and freedom. "Choose!" the creatures cried, a chorus of despair rising with each word. I hesitated. What was I being asked to do? The pendant pulsed against my palm, sending waves of energy throughout the space. Suddenly, I realized that the symbols were instructions. They required me to confront my past, and the choices I had made. I concentrated on the pendant, focusing on the memories of my loved ones, the times I let them down, the promises I'd broken. With determination, I knelt and touched the pendant to the glowing symbols. In an instant, light exploded, washing away the shadows. A powerful surge rushed through my body, and I felt the weight of countless voices surrounding me, and then silence. When the light faded, I was alone in the room, the whispers gone. The storage area looked even emptier than before, but something nagged at me. I could almost hear the echoes of their pleas lingering in the air. Worry crept in once more. Had I truly freed them? Or made a mistake? When I noticed the floor, a pattern formed beneath the dust, familiar symbols, ones I hadn't seen before. Each pulsated gently, waiting for something or someone. I had only moments to process before the room darkened again, plunging me into a dread I thought I'd escaped. I couldn't shake the feeling that more shadows were coming, and I had to find out what they wanted next. I stood frozen, my heart racing as I stared into the encroaching darkness. The shadows thickened, swirling around the room like a fog. I felt exposed, completely unprepared for whatever came next. Then, in the periphery, I caught a flicker of movement. A figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in a tattered robe. The face that emerged was familiar yet grotesque. It was my grandmother, but her features were twisted, her eyes black voids filled with despair. "Why did you let them in?" she whispered, her voice hauntingly familiar yet chilling. "You cannot escape the past." My throat tightened. "What do you mean? What past?" She pointed toward the newly formed symbols on the floor, each glowing brighter with her touch. "Each choice you made opened a door. You thought freeing them would help you, but you merely invited more shadows." Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed around us, reverberating through the walls. I turned sharply, my breath hitching as dozens of figures began to emerge, each wearing the faces of my loved ones. Their expressions were filled with anguish, and they stared at me with eyes full of accusation. "Help us!" they cried in unison, their voices merging into a cacophony of desperation. Panic surged through me. Their pleas gnawed at my conscience. I couldn't lose them again. "How do I fix this?" I screamed, feeling the weight of their collective sorrow crash down on me. "Embrace the truth," my grandmother said, her voice suddenly firm, cutting through the chaos. "You must confront what you've hidden, the regret festering in your heart." I closed my eyes, digging deep into my memories. I remembered the times I chose self-preservation over family, the broken promises made in hopes of protecting them from harm. Each choice had led me to this moment, a moment of reckoning. Taking a deep breath, I opened my eyes, the pendant still clutched in my hand. "I will not turn away," I asserted, my voice steadier now. "I will face my past." The shadows recoiled, and the symbols on the floor pulsed violently. I dropped to my knees, placing the pendant in the center of the design. The room erupted in light once more, but this time it was a blinding white radiance. As the light enveloped me, I felt the presence of the shadows shift, vibrate, and then stop. A deep silence fell upon the room. I slowly stood, squinting against the brightness. When the light dimmed, I found myself alone again. The shadows were gone, but the symbols remained on the floor, now glowing faintly. I glanced around the room, desperate for some sign of my family, but instead, I noticed a small object lying on the ground where the shadows had once surrounded me. I picked it up, my pulse quickening. It was a locket. I recognized it, my grandmother's locket, the one she always wore. Inside, a tiny photograph of our family smiled back at me, untouched by time. But then, without warning, the air shifted once more. A low growl broke the silence, echoing from the shadows that had thickened at the corners of the room. It was back, more furious than before, and it wasn't he alone. Did you really think you could escape? The familiar voice hissed, sending chills down my spine. I had no choice but to confront whatever darkness was lurking just beyond the light. It was time to face what I had awakened. I stood there, heart pounding, the locket still warm in my trembling hands. The shadows shifted, swirling ominously around me as the growl grew louder, becoming a low, rumbling growl that vibrated through the floorboards. Panic surged anew, but beneath that fear, resolve flickered to life. I couldn't allow the darkness to consume me, nor could I let it cling to the faces I loved. All this time, I've been running, I whispered to myself, gripping the locket like a lifeline. In that moment, I understood it wasn't about fleeing from the shadows, but about confronting them and what they represented. I faced the swirling mass before me, forcing myself to look into the dark. I've seen enough. You're not going to take anyone else from me. The growl intensified, morphing into something almost human, tinged with mockery. You think you can confront the truth? You're bound to us now, forever a part of this game. You think a trinket can save you? The shadows pulsed, and I felt their coldness creeping toward me, beckoning me to join their depths. No! I shouted defiantly. You don't control me. I refuse to accept this. I clung tighter to the locket, letting the warmth of its memory guide me. I thought of my grandmother, her laugh filling our home, her strength woven into the fabric of my childhood. I thought of all the moments I had taken for granted, the decisions I had made that now sprawled before me like a web of memories, realizing each choice had stitched itself into my soul. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if my words held weight. Let go of the past, the growling voice hissed. Your loved ones were not taken from you, they were given away willingly. I gasped as a wave of realization washed over me. Had it been my choices that had led to their disappearance? A chill settled deep in my bones as new memories flooded forward, moments when I chose career over family, when I stayed late at work instead of going to my grandmother's birthday dinner. I had abandoned them, shouldering guilt while convincing myself it was for their good. The truth struck like lightning, illuminating everything I wanted to forget. No, I finally spoke, voice steady. I may have made mistakes, but I refuse to let you twist them into despair. I'll face what I tried to hide. With newfound clarity, I turned back to the locket, opening it, and vowing to carry their love forward. I will not be drawn back into the shadows, I said, my voice rising against them. I remember them, and in my heart, they will live forever. With that declaration, the pendant reacted, shimmering like a dying star. The symbols beneath me surged with light, pulsing in rhythm with my heartbeat. The growl morphed into a scream, a shriek of frustration that echoed against the walls, rising to a crescendo that reverberated through the floor. The shadows writhed, twisting into shapes of agony, and I felt their grip loosen as I held tight to my truth. You don't own me! I shouted again, defiance swelling within me. The light erupted through the shadows, devouring them, casting away their reach. The whispers crescendoed, morphing into cries of liberation. As the darkness shattered around me, I stood firm, setting the locket at the center of the now bright symbols. A beam of light shot upward, enveloping me. A rush of warmth washed over me, filling the void that desperation had carved in my chest. It felt like home, like a promise of love that would never fade, a connection that transcended even this darkness. When the light faded, the room transformed once more into a place I recognized, the old cafe, where I had first stumbled into this nightmare. The air was warm, filled with the smell of coffee and camaraderie. I looked around. People were chatting, laughter intermingling with the clink of cups on polished tables. It felt strangely normal, but I knew it wasn't over. Was I free? The cafe felt alive, yet something nagged at me. The door opened, and in walked the woman from Taco Bell, her expression unreadable. Instinctively, my heart raced, but I held my ground. No more. She tilted her head, a hint of a smirk dancing on her lips. What will you do now, Mia? The shadows can only be kept at bay for so long. I swallowed, uncertainty creeping back in. I'll figure it out. And I won't run anymore. She stepped closer, the warmth of the cafe suddenly feeling like a thin veil over a deeper truth. Very well. But remember, the watcher is patient, and the signs may reveal themselves when you least expect them. Her form began fading, obscured by the atmosphere of the bustling cafe. A swell of fear and hope clashed within me, entwined with an intricate dance of possibility. As I sat at a table, alone yet somehow connected, I took a moment to breathe, glancing around at familiar faces and fragrant coffee. I didn't know what lay ahead, nor what shadows awaited me, but I felt a tinge of strength coursing through me. As ominous as the future felt, I steeled myself for whatever might come. Turning my gaze toward the window, I caught my reflection intertwined with the bustling scene. I could still hear the distant echo of whispers, but they no longer felt like a threat. Just reminders of choices made and paths still to be defined. And for now, that was enough.